Hi, and welcome to my first paint night at home, hopefully of many. So first of all, here's what we'll need. We'll need red, blue, black, and white acrylic paint. I've also got 3 brushes. I've got a large, medium, and small, roughly ½ inch, ¼ inch, and an 1/8 of an inch. You can use either the flat head of it or turn it on its side for a finer point. I've got just regular tap water, masking tape. I'm using 1½ inch, but you can use anything around that you have in the house. Just a pencil and ruler and a rag for cleaning up messes. The canvas I'm using today is a 12 by 16. It's a little bit longer than a standard ratio, but you can use anything that you have around that size as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark out a 2-inch border around the outside of the canvas. This step is optional. This is just sort of a stylistic thing that I did for this design. If you want to skip this altogether, you can go right ahead. So I'm just going to run a line of tape in between all of the marks that I've made, making sure it's a nice straight line. Now, I want a little bit of bleeding for this piece, so I don't want to push down too hard and make sure the crease is totally filled up. I want a little bit of space for the paint to leak underneath. But if you want a cleaner look, you can go ahead and use your fingernail or even the ruler that we were just using to make sure it's right sealed up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make some purple, just using 50-50 blue and red. I'm going to add a little bit of black just to darken it up. And I'm just going to start filling in the inside box of my canvas. I'm not going to go to the outside of the tape. Now, I want a little bit of variation in the color. So every once in a while, I'm going to grab some just pure blue, pure red, maybe a little bit of black, a bit of white. I just want a nice variegated purple in the background. If you don't like purple, go ahead and use a different color. You could make green. You could use just straight up blue, straight up red, whatever you'd like to do, even just plain black. Now, I'm not using any water at this point. I want the background to be nice and just nice thick paint. Water actually speeds up the drying of acrylic paint, and I want this to stay wet as long as possible. Now I'm grabbing some water with my big brush and I'm just splashing it onto the canvas. I want some nice streaky run lines. It's going to be nice and drippy. Now I've let that dry for a little bit, not all the way dry. I'm peeling off all of my tape. As you can see, there's some bleeding at the top of the and the bottom, which is exactly what I wanted there. I just want it to be sort of exploding out of the canvas. So I've got my little brush now, just with some pure black, and I'm going to start sketching out the face of my horse. Now I'm going to start with making a triangle. This is going to be where the eyes go, and I'm following that along with a straight line down the nose, and I'm starting to form the muzzle. Now, horses' faces are very angular, so you want to do this mostly with straight lines. So the front of the face is almost a kite shape, and then I'm bringing it down with a box at the bottom for the muzzle. And then a nice half circle for the cheekbone. I'm bringing up some little triangles for the ears. And I'm going to do a nice half moon arched neck. And then I'm going to repeat that shape on the bottom and come down straighter a little bit more. And I'm just going to slide the paint around a little bit just to define my edges, make sure everything's the shape that I want it to be. As you can see, I've made sure the ears and the muzzle stick out beyond the edges of our border that we've done a little bit. Right now I'm just cleaning up the lines. Alright, so I'm grabbing my medium brush with some pure white, and I'm just going to fill in the front kite shape of our horse's face. Now this is going to blend into the purple in our background, which is exactly what we want. We want to be picking up that paint below, so it's a nice pale purple color. I'm going to bring that down through the cheek, getting a little bit darker as I go, just by using less white and blending it in more with the background. I've added a nice sharp cheekbone there using a streak of white. I'm just going to fill everything in. Now I'm going to go on to highlight the nice big neck muscle there. I'm going to do sort of a rounded triangle for that shape, and then fill in the bottom as well. Just filling in my little ears there. Now by pressing harder when you're making the body of the ear and bringing it to a finer point and pulling it up away from the canvas as you finish will give you a nice little point at the top. So now I'm filling in the muzzle with pure black. I've gone down to my small brush. So I'm making sure everything is really blended. I'm adding some blue in there, blending that in with the color below, and bringing it all the way up the cheek. I'm just going to bring out all of the shadows with a little bit of blue. Now I'm defining the neck muscle again with some black. I'm going to keep darkening this up as the paint dries, but right now I just want to make sure all of the shapes are correct. Now through this whole process, I'm not using any water. I'm just wiping off my paintbrush on the rag as I go. So now I'm doing the mane, just using the medium brush, big long strokes with white, and then I'm going to start adding in some of the other colors again as well. So once again, I'm going down below the borders of our little frame there. You'll want to make sure you've got some nice shape in there. You don't want just straight up and down hair. There, I'm bringing in some of the blue. And some red. I'm going to bring the forelock in there. So it's going to be split over the forehead and then come down sort of behind the eyes on each side. Going back down to my baby brush. And I'm finding the line for my eyes. I want it to be in a straight line visually from the triangle that we've made. There we go. So I'm going to fill in the eye. So horses' eyes aren't almond shaped like human eyes. They are more of a triangle, so they're almost flat at the front and then they come back to a rounded triangle at the back. And then the nose is the nostril is very apostrophe shaped. So we want a little tail at the top and then a big rounded bottom. I'm just going to keep playing with the shape of the eye until I like it. So I've let this dry a little bit. so I can work with it with some more cleaner lines. I'm going back in with the white. I want to do some more highlights, accentuate the brow line there. We want this horse's forehead to be sort of the main focal point of this piece. We want it to come forward. So we're going to do that with a nice bright triangle there. Working that white down to just where it starts getting darker in the muzzle. I'm going to highlight the cheekbone. And then some of those jaw muscles there as well. Just going to come up, bring some more white in, just on the top neck muscle there, a little bit down the neck. And the nice little hairs inside the ears. Those ones, we want them to be nice and streaky and fluffy. Now the same thing that I just did with the highlights, I'm going to do the same with the shadows. I'm just going to go along the bottom of everything I did. So if we highlighted everything at the top, we're going to want to shadow everything at the bottom. And this is what's going to give it a nice three-dimensional look. Now I'm just using some black lines to accentuate some of the details. So the little hollow above the eye, the little whorl. Just sharpening things up a little bit. I want to darken around the eye a little bit. So I'm making sure not to disturb the shape of the eye that we've created, but I'm just darkening around it with a little bit of black on the tip of my brush. I don't want to have too much paint on the brush at this point. I just want to be smudging it in. Now I'm just going to pick out a few finer hairs in the mane now. Once again, just doing some finer lines with the black. Just going to sharpen everything up. Just doing some highlights in the forelock with some pure white with a little brush. Same thing in the mane. I'm giving it some curl because I want to. I'm now adding some eyelashes. So just a teeny tiny line of dots inside the eye. I've also added a little highlight just in the corner of the eye. And this will just brighten things up. And there we go. and a little eyelash on the other side as well. Now I'm just going to bring in some shine to the muzzle. So I'm going around the edges of our nostril. There we go, some veins and ridges in the face. And just going back in with a little bit more white. I like some, just ziggy-zaggy lines, just adding some interest to the piece. At this point, I just like to play around with it. It's more or less done, but I'm just seeing what needs a little bit more attention. You can bring in a little bit more purple at this point, a little more red, a bit more blue, whatever you'd like. If you want to darken up the background, you can go back and do that. There, I'm bringing in a little bit more blue there. And a little bit more red as well. And the last thing we do is sign it. Now you can do this on the back if you want to. I like to do it on the front. And there's our finished result.